Hello everybody, this is Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and in this Facebook Live I'm going to be speaking with you about the problem with channeling. Now, nowadays in spiritual communities, it's very popular for people to channel messages from spiritual beings. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So let me go ahead and shut this off because my computer keeps beeping at me. So we've got a lot of people joining. This is awesome, you guys. So as people are joining, as usual, if you could go ahead and let us know where you're joining from and be ready to ask questions. I actually had some ideas over a couple weeks ago. I had different ideas coming in, and so on my calendar I put different topics on each week. So today we are talking about channeling. So hello, Rose from San Antonio, Texas. So nice to see you on here. Okay, so, I want you to think about what, actually, I'm going to tell you about what channeling is and give you some information, but you might already have some burning questions, and that's why you jumped on right away. So, I will be answering questions at the end. And Tammy is joining from Lawson, Missouri. Hello, Tammy. Good to see you. You guys, we just had, so it's early November, we just had daylight savings time switch over the weekend. So it's now totally pitch black outside. That's why I'm not doing my Facebook Live outdoors, because it's dark. And my brain thinks that it's 2 o'clock in the morning right now. I don't know if that happens to you guys too. I'm like, how many more months until warm weather? Because I'm not a cold weather or dark times person. Okay, so we've got Dina joining from Shawnee, Kansas, Anne from Trail, British Columbia, Canada, and Jane, I think, is joining from New York. Brooklyn, New York. There you go. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. So before we jump in case anybody is new to me, anybody who's joining live or watching the replay, grab a pen and paper. I want to give you some information on how you can get more and how you can get more information, how you can work with me, how you can take classes from me, and so on. So my website is www.psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. Again, that's psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And there are programs on there. And I have students all over the world who take classes with me. So don't worry if you're not in the Kansas City area. That's no big deal, because most of the classes that I teach are online. And as some of you know, I do most of the time, so for the time being, I am doing Facebook Lives every Monday at 6 p.m. U.S. Central Time. And I will plan to do those in the future, weekly. I've gone back and forth between doing them monthly, and that felt like it wasn't enough. So here we are doing it weekly. And as some of you know, I like to put a lot of free information out there, a lot of free content. That's my contribution on the planet. This is the work that I do. This is my full-time job. And so how I organize it, how I do it, is I put a lot of beginning and intermediate content out into the world for free. Most of it via videos, Facebook Live and YouTube. And then if you want to go deeper, then I have programs and one-on-one sessions. The programs, we go further into our intermediate and advanced material. And there's a lot more focus on how to resolve issues, whereas the free content is more about information like, what is this stuff, right? So if you feel like you need more, that's how I've organized everything. So you can go to my website, Psychic Protection Sanctuary, if you want more information. So it's wonderful to see you all joining this evening. And so as we jump into our topic, the problem with channeling. Like, that's how I feel. It's like, it's such a problem. Oh my God, it's like very annoying. But as you probably already, so if you've been following me for a while, you know that I also believe in the free will for people to choose. So there are a lot of spiritual seekers out there that are channeling random stuff. That's their right to choose that. But it's also my right to get on here and rant and talk about my opinions about all this stuff going on. Since you're watching this, I know you're the kind of person who is conscientious, and you want to make sure that you are not accidentally calling in negative energies. Most of the people who follow my work are people who want to make sure they're not accidentally activating something that they don't want and causing unwanted paranormal activity. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So first of all, let me go ahead and define what is channeling. So channeling is a practice by which a live human being in physical form will call in, I'm trying to think of the clearest way to describe this. We'll call in a spirit to channel messages through them, right? So what happens is, a spirit or an ascended being, it could be a ghost or it could be a high vibration being, like anything on the spectrum will send messages through this person. That can be done either consciously or unconsciously, so consciously would be that the person is aware and they know what's happening. And what happens is either the entity steps into the person. Now, I know that isn't how everybody channels, so don't throw things at me if that's not how you channel. Just trying to be really thorough here. Either the spiritual being steps into the person and then speaks through the person. The message comes out, okay? Or the being will be next to the person and will still actively speak through the person. Okay, so the entity is controlling this, either the speech, so the person might be speaking out loud, or the channeling might be happening via pen or typing. So in that sense, then the fingers or the hand would be controlled by the entity. So again, there's conscious channeling, where the person who, like the live human person, not the spirit, that the live human person is totally aware and conscious of what's happening. They're having their own thoughts. They're noticing things that are happening. They're aware, so they know what's being channeled and what's being said. And then the other version of that is unconscious channeling, where the person's consciousness like shuts off, and the spiritual being is in charge, moving the person's body and sharing the message. And then after the channeling is complete, the human being has no idea what channeled messages were shared. I see that both forms of channeling are problematic, whether the person is consciously channeling or unconsciously channeling. The problem that I see is that an entity is controlling the person. There's kind of a little back way that people will do this, where they're not actually channeling. They're not actually bringing the entity into them, but they're doing something that's called an overlay. An overlay. So that would be where the person is still there, but the spiritual being is like superimposed over the person. So they're both existing in the same place. But the spiritual being isn't coming into the person's body. I don't think that's any better. I just don't. I don't. Here's the thing. My definition, my professional definition of, let's see, what do I want to say? Okay, so my professional definition of possession, you didn't think I was going to talk about possession tonight, did you? My definition of possession is when a spirit or spiritual being of any kind enters into a person. In my professional opinion, possession does not have to be a head spinning around, a demon inside a person, and then like spewing vomit like in the movies, right? In my definition, a possession is any time a spiritual being enters into a person, okay? So according to that definition, when someone is doing standard channeling, and I say that because there might be some of you who are doing something that you're calling channeling, but maybe it's not really what I'm talking about. So if someone is doing standard channeling, like I just described, they are inviting themselves to be possessed. Now, the thing is that if you call a spirit into your body, what happens is that primes your energetic system and your physical system. It sets you up so you are more, what's the word I had before? You're more attractive to other entities coming in and entering you. It's kind of like it's like a receptor point is created. Like I get the image of like on your wall you have an electrical outlet, and then you can plug the electrical prongs in because the electrical outlet is there because it's already there, right? So once you invite spirit or spirits into your body to channel, then that imprinting is already there. So even if that spirit leaves, other beings are going to want to come in because they're like, oh, she's friendly for channeling, or she doesn't have very good energy boundaries, or he doesn't have very good energy boundaries. And so let's just go on in, right? So it does set you up to be a target more in the future. And so just keep that in mind, okay? I do have some suggestions. So, but before I go into the suggestions, I want to go over a little bit of vocabulary. So I talked about how channeling can be done spoken or typing or with a pen. So I'm going to talk now about the channeling that can be done with a pen or with typing. And that is often called automatic writing. Automatic writing. And I'm going to give a little vocabulary distinction here. So automatic writing is, it's a form of channeling in which the spiritual entity is typing the message for you. So a lot of times a person doesn't even know what they're typing. Their fingers are moving and the message is just coming out. Okay. Hey, Melissa, good to see you. And so I want to clarify that a lot of people are very well-meaning when they're doing this kind of channeling, and what they're attempting to do is receive messages from ascended beings, from beautiful beings of light who have messages of hope and promise for humanity and that kind of thing. There's a lot of those kinds of messages that are coming through. But let me go back to automatic writing. So automatic writing, that's a form of channeling. I have a distinction where what I do is what I call automatic dictation. So automatic writing is where the being is moving your arm. It's moving the pen. Okay, it's writing the message for you or typing the message for you. Automatic dictation is when you open your journal or your notebook or your computer and you sit there and you say a prayer, you connect with your spiritual support team, whoever they are, and maybe you write down a question, how can I resolve blah, blah, blah situation? And then you sit quietly and you wait to hear or feel an answer in your heart, and you write down what comes to you. So this is actually how I quote channel messages from my guides. Is I will I'll sit down and I'll ask a question, and then the answer is dictated to me. So I will feel the answer empathically, or I will hear it, or I'll get images, and so that's dictation. That those messages are being presented to me, and I'm the one that's writing it down. So the difference between automatic writing and automatic dictation is automatic writing, you're not in charge. Automatic dictation, you are. So if you've been following me for even a little bit of time, you know that I always think it is a bad idea to to have any entity or to bring in any energies within your body that might not be positive for you. It's like, no, don't ever do that. Okay. So I do think it's totally fine to be divinely inspired. So where you might receive a message in your heart or in your mind, and you write it down, or you post it on Facebook, or you create a recording of it. And that's not the same as channeling. So receiving a beautiful inspiration, receiving a message, that's not the same as channeling, where a spiritual being is coming in and moving the person's mouth. Okay. Hi, Edith. Nice to see you. Edith is in Lawrence, Kansas. I think that's where you're at. Melissa is saying, thanks for clarifying. I would never give anyone or anything permission to control any part of me. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, the thing is that unfortunately in the spiritual communities nowadays, I don't mean just my local community, but kind of like everywhere, the spiritual communities, it's channeling has become very, very popular. So what's either happening with the channeling is either it's not really an authentic channeling, and it's really more the person's ego that is creating the messages. Even if it's very well-intentioned, sometimes there's not even really a spirit doing anything. It's just the spiritual teacher is just like, hello, dear ones. We are spiritual beings that are coming with this message for you. And usually the message, okay, I know I'm gonna piss some people off. I shouldn't be laughing about that, but okay, I believe in free will, and I don't mean any ill intent at all, but I'm just going to call it as I see it. So a lot of the channeled messages out there are not even truly channeled at all. They are very vague and generalized messages. Usually the tone of the message is like a tone of hope, and it's either aliens or ascended masters or something that the person is channeling, and the message says, we are with you, we care for you, we know that it's a challenging time, and an ascension process will be happening soon, and things are going to get much better, and we are here to save you. Like, that's the same message, like regurgitated over and over again. It's the same thing. And most of those messages, again, even very well intended by whatever spiritual teacher is channeling them, usually they're very well intentioned, but oftentimes it's really just the person's either their ego or it's coming from their own subconscious. So that's one problem that can happen with all of these spiritual messages that are being channeled through spiritual leaders and spiritual teachers. The other issue is that if they actually are channeling something, then they're actually bringing a spiritual being into their body. And I've seen this happen many times. I've been at live events and I've seen things on video. And being a clairvoyant myself, I will actually see the person's face change. And that is freaky, let me tell you. I've seen a person's face change to like this alien face thing. I've seen a person's face change to like this kind of spiritual being. And yeah, so again, I don't think it's ever a good idea to bring a being into your body. I think what some of these people are feeling is that, well, this is an ascended master, an ascended being, or Jesus, or somebody, some beautiful spiritual being that's trying to share this message. Of course I would allow them to enter my body and be a vessel for that message. And so the person is coming from a very altruistic place where they're really wanting to help, and they're really wanting to be a vessel to share these messages of light and love. But again, it's problematic to call spiritual beings into your body. As I will say that what I've observed about people that I know who channel a lot is that it seems to be very hard on them. Some of the people that I know that channel a lot, it has been very hard on them psychologically, where they start to have psychiatric issues. I almost feel like I wish I could retract that, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I don't have any training, like any medical training that would allow me to, make any diagnosis like that. But it's something that I've noticed is that it does seem to be very hard on the person, and they seem to really struggle because what's happening is like all of their energetic boundaries are getting worn down. Now, I saved the quote best for last here. Like the biggest problem with channeling, and if you've read my book, Darkness Disguised as Light, you will know what I'm talking about. The biggest problem with, well, there's a lot of problems with channeling, but one of the biggest problems with it is that despite the fact that there are people who are coming from a very altruistic place, they really mean well, they want to be sharing good news with the world. The reality, this is real, folks. The reality is that most of these so-called light beings that are channeling messages into and through spiritual teachers are actually false light entities. That's the term that I use for that. They're false light entities. By false light entity, I mean that they are dark beings that are not of the light, and they are in disguise, and they are pretending to be light beings. And there are a lot of people out there who will say, well, yeah, but I would know if they were not who they say they are. I would know if it wasn't weren't truly of the light. The problem is that these false light entities are extremely convincing. They are masters of disguise, masters of, they're master shapeshifters. That is what they are. There's been a long history in the history of the human race. There's been a long history of, beings who are actually dark beings, presenting themselves to people as angels, as Jesus, as beings of light, as beneficial beings when they are not beneficial at all. So we have an epidemic. We really do. We have an epidemic in the spiritual communities where there are all of these very beautiful, heart-centered, loving, truly altruistic people who are wanting to help the planet. But what they're doing is they're unintentionally channeling a whole lot of messages from false light entities. Now, how false light entities work is they will typically tell 80% truth and 20% lie. So that's one of the reasons why they're so convincing, because a person will say, well, yeah, but they said this and this and this and this and this and this, and if that's all valid. And why would they say that if it wasn't true? I mean, and then so I think there have been studies on, sociopaths that says that they will tell 80% lies, or sorry, I got it backward. 80% truth, 20% lies, and that makes it so the person receiving that information, it's a lot easier to fool them with the lies because there's all of this truth interwoven. And really, these false light entities are very sociopathic. They are liars. They do gaslighting techniques. Like, they will really mess with your head. Okay. So if you are watching this video and you are somebody who's been doing some channeling, I'm not trying to scare you. I want to give you the information that you need so that you can make the best choices possible. Okay. So, and then also, so here's the other thing, maybe you're watching this video and you're like, well, I don't want to channel, or I'm not really able to, I haven't really ever really connected with that. But maybe you have books or videos or what have you, or live events that you go to where the spiritual teacher is channeling messages. What I've noticed is when it comes to those books and those programs and those teachers out there that are channeling stuff, like I take one look at it and I'm like, that entity isn't even what it says it is, because I've got this way of just like seeing, I can see it, I can see the truth. That's just one of my gifts. We all have different gifts. But I'll also see, oh my God, everybody is just gobbling that up. Everybody is just soaking it up like a sponge. And there's this belief in the spiritual communities. Not only are there lots of people who are channeling, but there are lots of spiritual seekers who, if somebody says this is channeled material, they automatically believe it at face value. Like, well, it comes from a spiritual source. Therefore, it's like divinely inspired. And so they believe all of it. So when you're encountering spiritual material out there that is channeled, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't read any of those books or go to any events or whatever where they're doing channeling. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is take it all with a grain of salt, and remember that even if the spiritual being that's giving the message is a false light entity, there's going to be some truth in their message, and that's how they do it. Okay, there's going to be some truth, but there's also going to be incorrect information that's interwoven in. So just be really careful not to believe all of it. And also ask yourself the question, who, is this? So first of all, who is it that they're actually channeling? Because some people channel random stuff and they're not even clear who they're channeling. And other people are really clear, like the Abraham Hicks material. They're clear about what they are. If you don't know who that is, just Google Abraham-Hicks. And by the way, I'm not against them. I've listened to a lot of their stuff. I have gotten some inspiring ideas from what they share. But here's the difference. I don't just take what they say as Bible truth just because they're spiritual beings. Because we don't know for sure. It's just like people on the planet, everybody has their own agendas. And we don't, you really just need to run things through your own filter. Okay. All right. I think I got my message across. We have some comments. So thanks for listening to me ramble there for a while, because I know you guys were commenting, and then I wasn't reading any of your comments. So you stopped commenting. Let's see. So we've got a comment or a question from Jane. Can someone who is a medium use automatic dictation to communicate for some being? Yes. So someone who is a medium who wants to connect with spirits on the other side, they can certainly do that. And I'm not against that at all. I was a psychic reader at a psychic fair a couple weekends ago, and there are some of the psychics there. Their specialty is communicating with loved ones on the other side. For me, when I do psychic readings, that's not my number one specialty, but loved ones will often come in just unintentionally. I'll be like, oh, there's so-and-so on standing at your left shoulder. So whether it's writing or verbally sharing those messages, I think it's fine. There are loved ones on the other side who want to communicate with us. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a beautiful thing when we can receive loving or informative messages from our loved ones on the other side. And the same thing with, the ascended beings, how beautiful it can be to receive an authentic message from Jesus, from Kuan Yin, from Buddha, from Mother Mary, or whoever it is that you connect with. That can be a very beautiful thing. But the problem is the number one problem is that there are all these false light entities, lots of them, that are hooking into about 80, again, the number again is 80%. About 80% of the spiritual community has false light entities attached to them. And I don't make that statement very often. I've been a little bit nervous about saying that because it's a pretty bold thing to say, but it is true. It's what I see, that about 80% of the spiritual community, New Age community, especially those that are channeling, have false light entities attached to them that are actively, and they're actively channeling messages from those false light entities. I still have to read the rest of your question, Jane, but I want to say one more thing. Sometimes when a person is an open channel like that, they can establish their livelihood around those channeled messages. I mean, there are people, spiritual teachers, who are famous or semi-famous because they are, channeling these messages to big groups of people, and that's how they make their living. And so, if it were to be pointed out to them that, you're actually, that being that you're channeling is not who it says it is, they have a lot of reason. That spiritual teacher has a lot of reason to be defensive, because that's their livelihood. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but you get what I'm saying. They have a lot of reason to defend the false light beings. They have a lot of reason to not want to believe that those beings are false light, because that would cause their work and their livelihood to crumble. Those of you who've been following me and who know me also know that I make it a point to not be the quote energy police. So I don't go around outing people. My focus is on teaching people like you, so that you can make the best decisions that you can. It's hard to watch this stuff going on in the spiritual community. It's really hard to be observer of it, but I can't stop it, because what would I do? I go up to the person and say, excuse me, the being that you are channeling is not who it says that it is. It's not Saint Germain. It's something else entirely, and it has a dark agenda. That person is gonna, they're not gonna want to believe it. They're going to push back. It's not gonna solve the problem. I've tried it, believe me. I've tried to approach people just a few times, and it was very clear to me that it actually has more of an adverse effect. And so I was like, okay, I think my focus has to be on just staying in my own lane, blessing everybody out there, whatever path they're choosing, and just, getting my book out into the world, and helping people understand what's really going on. So I just went on another tangent there. Going back to Jane, are there any beings that are even actually communicating through channeling? There actually are. I think there are some situations for sure where whatever spiritual being that is being channeled is actually who they say they are. But I think that is less common than you might want to believe. So yes, there are spiritual beings that actually are being channeled. A lot of them are false light. Very few of them are who they say they are. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Jane says, go ahead and piss them off. Yeah, I actually, in the last year, I've had a lot of colleagues who have unfriended and blocked me on Facebook. And listen, I've made it a point to not be, to not out people, to not be in people's faces. I'm actually a peacemaker. So that's my personality type. I'm a peacemaker. So it's been definitely interesting to step up to this different focus of being a truth revealer. But the way that I do it is by just embodying it and sharing that message. I don't go in and poke people. I don't do that. I don't argue with people directly. I don't do any of that. But people who have invested a lot and have a lot to lose, people who are, for example, making their livelihood from channeling false light entities. Some of those people, they blocked. I hadn't even done a video like this where I've been so overt. I'm being very straightforward here. My videos in the beginning were more general, but the people who were doing a lot of false light channeling, they blocked me like that. And when I go to a spiritual event, I'll walk through, I'm saying hello, genuinely, wanting to say hi to people. And I literally have had people where I'll go up to them and I'll say hi, because even though I see what's going on spiritually, we're two human beings. We're, brothers and sisters, right? So I want to go up and say hi. So I say hi. And I've had people do this to me. This one lady was and she was looking up. She wouldn't make eye contact at me. And she was looking up. She was pretending that I wasn't there. And I said, hi. don't you see me? I'm standing right here. And, do you remember my name's Maya? And she said, yes, I know who you are. And I don't want to speak to you. Like, that is literally what she did. And I'm laughing about it, but I also feel, well, yeah, I mean, it hurts my feelings. It was kind of hurtful and annoying. It's more annoying than anything. But I also feel kind of sorry for her. Like, she must have felt really afraid because she's an energy healer. She's somebody who does light work on people. But she also works with a lot of false light entities. But I've never told her that. I've never told her that. But what I've noticed is that, so what I think is that when someone has a lot of false light entities attached to them, those false light entities encourage the person to get as far away from me as possible because they don't want to be outed. But the thing is I don't directly out people anyway. But I've noticed that the people who are infested with false light entities will avoid me like the plague, and they act afraid. So it makes me wonder, those false light entities must be telling them some very fear-based things in order to keep them away. So that, again, that might sound like a very bold thing for me to say. I haven't shared that publicly on a video before, but it is something that I've noticed a lot with people who are channeling, and they have a lot to lose, and they're very emotionally and maybe financially invested in channeling these beings, right? And staying attached to them. Okay, Tammy. I had a spirit come in uninvited and forced me to say a message. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. It scared my sister because she said my face changed and my mannerisms changed. I want to give messages, but not like that. Yeah. Yeah, so that is, to me, that's a personal attack. Like, that being came into you without your permission. That is a violation. That's a violation of consent. And so I hope that didn't happen again. I'm sorry that happened even once, and I hope that doesn't happen again. Now that you've had it happen and you've gotten really clear in your consciousness and in the energy that you send out, this vibe that you're not allowed to do that. This is my space. So one of the things that's coming to me right now intuitively, Tammy, is to tell you to work on being, I hope this makes sense, work on being more embodied in your physicality, in your physical body. Sometimes you tend to leave your body, so your consciousness sometimes checks out and you're not totally fully integrated. If you ever, I really don't know you, but if you ever drink or use substances, that would be something to be really careful of, because that does tend to disengage spirit from body. So just be aware of that. And work on grounding more. So when you breathe, like taking a deep inhale and like breathing all the way down to your root chakra and just like anchoring your energy down. Hope that makes sense. So, and this part is for everybody. When you are fully embodied, when you're fully present and at home in your vehicle, in your body space, then it is harder for stuff to come in. It's not impossible for stuff to come in, but it's harder. Whereas if you have checked out or partially checked out and your energy is sort of like over here instead of totally inside your body, or if you're not very grounded and you're kind of spaced out, or you're really stressed out and your mental energy is like going every which way, you are not fully embodying, your consciousness is not fully in your body. And when you're not at home, that gives permission for a burglar to come in. And it's like, oh, nobody's home, let's break in. So that is something to keep in mind. If you're like, oh, I don't want that to ever happen, then you want to work on grounding and breathing and calming your mind more and focusing on being more present in your body. Okay. For some people that's hard because they have traumas, emotional traumas or physical pain that they're working on healing. So it can be a process. Okay. All right. Melissa, do they think demons are stupid? Of course they are cunning and slick. Right. Okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah. So some of the false light beings are demons. There is a history of demons pretending to be beings of light. And there are other negative entities as well who pull those shenanigans. So, yep. Charles Anthony, hey there, spiritual sister. Yeah. Hey, Charles, high five. Good to see you. Charles is saying, those false light beings are a real pain in the arse. Yes, they are. Yep. Let's see if I can go down. Debbie, absolutely. Charles again says, they're lost, sister. You are an amazing soul. Yeah, thank you. It takes one to know one. Yeah. Charles, we should talk sometime. I think we have some similar stories. I just have a feeling. Jane is saying, this was an earlier comment. I appreciate your courage. It's good to embody. Many do not want the truth. Yep. Christina Jones is asking, how can you tell the difference? I assume you're asking, how can you tell the difference between an authentic spiritual being that is who they say they are versus a false light entity? So it actually can be kind of tricky. Okay, so let me think of a couple of tips here. Oftentimes a false light entity will overcompensate and will make itself really bright and shiny, like intense. I've also noticed that false light entities, that they will come in like loud and clear. So I'll have somebody contact me and they'll say, wow, I have this new spirit guide and I literally hear its voice. It talks to me and it tells me things. Or I feel like I get these message downloads directly into my head. And oftentimes those are false light entities. I have, as I've worked with clients, I have experienced that firsthand where I've tapped into what was attaching to my client, and I would hear and feel the messages coming. And there's this one type of entity that I've encountered a few times. And this particular type of entity like literally has a booming voice that booms inside of your head. And if someone didn't know about false light entities, they'd be like, wow, I have this amazing spirit guide that gives me these really clear messages. But the reality is that like an authentic spiritual encounter is usually much more subtle. So the psychics out there who are channeling authentic messages, usually if they hear something, it's really soft. It's not a booming voice. Okay. So again, the false light entities tend to overcompensate by being extra bright. If you're clairvoyant and you can see energy, or if you're clairaudient, they come through really, really loud. Another indicator is that if you notice that there's anything at all that is a little bit out of place, that doesn't seem right, then listen to that. Listen to your spidey sense. Okay, listen to your gut feeling. If I've had actually several clients who've said that they were meditating and they felt like a particular guide was coming through, but they had this weird feeling like something wasn't right. And they asked me to check for them because, again, that's one of my gifts, is that I'm able to really see that very clearly. And so I would check for them and I'd be like, well, actually, you're right. It's not so-and-so ascended master or saint, whoever. It's actually a false light entity. And but their gut feeling was telling them already that there was something that was off. If you want to know more about false light entities, then I do recommend that you read this book, Darkness Disguised as Light by Maya Zahira. That's me. Again, I'm not on this video trying to sell my book, but it's under $20. It's $17.95 on Amazon, and reading it will really help you get a good understanding of what I'm talking about and about false light entities, and it's going to fill it out a lot more. So if you're really wanting to understand, then I recommend that you read the book. And by the end of the book, I really pull it all together with the false light entity information, and it makes a lot of sense. Charles, Maya looks at me and thinks, oh man, he has a lot of work. LOL. No, I don't think that at all. I don't know why you're saying that. You're so silly. Tammy says, thank you. I will work on that. It makes a lot of sense. Good. And Tammy says, so when that uninvited channeling happened, she thought that it was a panic attack at first. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that, because that helps other people to discern if that's possibly happening to them, to be able to tell what's happening. Charles says, I have had what I thought were spirit guides, and it turned in a hurry. So it sounds like it turned into something negative. Christina says, I am so apprehensive of everyone, but I really don't get messages like others say I should. Well, who cares if other people say you should, right? Don't worry about what other people are saying you should do. Don't let other people should on you. And stay in your own lane, focus on your own spiritual journey. There's a lot of pressure. I don't know if you've experienced this, Christina, but there's a lot of pressure in spiritual communities, in some circles, like you need to be channeling messages. Well, you know what? Maybe that might not be your gift. Maybe your gift is something else. So I would say, don't worry about it. Stay in your own lane. Christina says, I can't see negativity like that. Well, I think over time you might develop your skills. Maybe it's more of a feeling. For some people, it's more about getting a gut feeling. Okay. And Charles is making a comment about my book. Thank you, Charles. He says, great book. I recommend it. Thank you. Charles is also an author. I don't have your book handy, Charles, but you can connect with him. He actually has a couple of books on the paranormal. Good. And I read one of them. It was very good. And Anne is saying, a super read. Yeah. Thank you, Anne. Christina Jones is saying, negative energy makes me physically ill. Yeah, that's what I was getting intuitively about you, that for you, it works more through empathic abilities. So you're able to feel it. So it makes you feel sick. Charles is saying, no problem, buddy. I have signed with a publisher this week. Wow, that's exciting news. I haven't been keeping up on Facebook posts, so I'll have to take a look at your page and see what's up. Okay, you guys, we went for a whole hour. That was cool. That was really fun. I felt like I just went on a roller coaster ride. So this is your last chance to post any questions, because I'm going to go eat some dinner. If we don't have any other questions. All righty. I don't remember what our topic is for next time, and I can't look it up, but I'm always accepting requests for future topics as well. So feel free to send me a message. And Charles is saying things are going well, writing a new book as well. Love you, buddy. Yeah, big hug to you, Charles. Jane says, I shut down my abilities as a medium because I didn't know how to protect myself or how to understand those communications. You have taught me so much. Thank you. Yeah. And Jane is in my psychic protection mentorship program right now. And that's one of the 2 programs that I have. And actually being in either program, and I'll talk about the other program later, but being in either program will help you to establish better discernment and learn how to develop your skills without having crazy stuff try to hook in to you, because that can happen. Yeah. Okay. I think we're all done. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great evening, and I will see you next week. Again, you can get more information about my my offerings at my website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And I do have a lot of free stuff on my website. So you can click on free videos on the top to watch, to get some like really in-depth free video classes. And then you can also sign up. You can type your email in and get some free content that way as well. And then Tammy is saying, thank you. This was great. Can't wait for the next video. And Anne says, thank you, Maya. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And I will see you all next time. Sending you all my love.